Hello and welcome to the Kanawha Valley Hustlers. I'm here at Meetup 64 with Shawn. Shawn, tell me, buddy, what's your hustle?
I'm a personal injury attorney and, do a little bit of stock trading on the side.
Oh, all right. So a couple hustles then. Tell me a little bit about personal injury. How is that different from other types of law?
Well, we represent people exclusively that were injured at no fault of their own. So, about 3 years before I started law school, my mom went through a double mastectomy with immediate DIEP flap reconstructive surgery.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 12-hour operation, cuts all on your torso up, waist up, I should say. And she comes out of it with a right foot injury. And how does that happen, right?
Yeah.
So we find out that the anesthesiologist inadvertently cuts the circulation off to her right foot for about 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
And, the real issue that we dealt with after the injury was finding somebody to represent my mother. And, a lot of people talk about tort reform nowadays. And, for those that don't know what that is, it's basically reforming tort law,
Yeah.
on the basis of lowering premiums for, doctors that take out these malpractice insurance policies. And what they do is they place these, patently unfair pre-suit requirements onto injured plaintiffs, including a screening certificate of merit in a medical malpractice action, where you have to find another doctor to sign off on another doctor's conduct and say, this was negligent, it deviated from the standard of care because they either did do or didn't do XYZ. This screening certificate can be $15,000 or $20,000 before you even have the right to file a suit, because it's what's called a jurisdictional prerequisite.
Oh, okay.
So, having personal exposure to tort reform really kind of lit the fire under my butt, so to speak. I started off wanting to go to law school, wanting to be a corporate attorney, making a ton of money just by being a paper pusher. But then my mom got injured by medical negligence, and that really changed my tune.
Wow. So you've got a real personal stake in what you do.
Absolutely. I joined the West Virginia Association for Justice before I even had a job. And, the reason that's significant is because you have to certify that you don't do defense work to join the organization. Civil defense, we're in the association, we're friends with criminal defense because we're all about access to justice, criminal justice reform, reforming tort reform, and just making sure that everybody is able to have their day in court, kind of like it was meant to be.
Well, you mentioned that just to kind of take a step back in the 30,000 foot view. A lot of people might not necessarily know. A lot of people might be a little bit more familiar with Law and Order, or maybe they Perry Mason or something like that. What are the different areas of law, kind of broadly speaking?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. If you want to take a global look back, you have litigation and transactional. Litigation is you're either suing somebody or you're defending somebody that's been sued. If you're suing somebody, you're trying to maximize their liability, trying to make sure that, all the elements of your claim are being met. On the defense side, you're trying to poke holes in the plaintiff's case, minimize liability. So, it's give and take.
Yeah. And you have like criminal law, and then you have like civil law. Those are different things, right?
Absolutely. Criminal, of course, is going to be litigational because you're in court, you're charging with somebody with a crime.
Right.
And, you're potentially taking their freedom away.
Right.
And due process requires some sort of procedure associated with that. So, you've got criminal law and civil law in the litigation side. A lot of the transactional side, mergers and acquisitions. Somebody wants to open a business, you're helping them construct the founding documents to create their LLC, LLP, PLLC, sole proprietorship. I'm not a BizOrgs guy, so I don't really know all the nuance,
Right. But that's basically kind of the different areas. And, there's, but then what you do specifically is personal injury. And that's people that are injured through no fault of their own, that are seeking justice. Is that right?
That's correct. I think I should qualify that at no fault of their own or less than 50% at fault. And without getting into the weeds on of a discussion around what's called comparative fault, if a jury finds that the plaintiff is some degree negligent as well as the defendant, they can use that percentage to lower the plaintiff's reward.
Gotcha.
So, it's ideally at no fault of their own, because they're going to get the most out of that.
Right.
It's best for our client. But we also take cases where it's like, there might be some problem areas in the case where, the plaintiff might have not been as attentive as they should have been.
Right.
And maybe they were 20% at fault for an auto accident.
Yeah.
It's our job to say that they weren't at fault,
Right.
and maybe get that closest down to a zero as we can.
And so some examples of that might be, we mentioned medical malpractice, auto accidents, things like if somebody gets injured what about when people get injured at work because somebody's negligent or not turning off safety equipment, that type of thing?
Now, our firm doesn't handle workers' comp specifically.
Okay.
And that is because, kind of similar to tort law, workers' comp defense attorneys and, the insurance industry have made it incredibly difficult for people to pursue these types of claims.
Gotcha.
So if it's outside of the workers' comp field and more in personal injury, it could have happened at work, but there might be some circumstances that place it outside of the workers' comp doctrine. We would probably love to take a look at a case like that.
Yeah.
But, workers' comp has just been a very tough field, for attorneys in recent years. So we really just do personal injury and focus exclusively on injured people.
It sounds like this legal stuff is pretty complicated.
Absolutely. When I was in law school,
Is that why it takes you 4 years?
well, it's 3.
Oh, is it 3 years?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. But the metaphor for law school was drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
But what they don't tell you is that's also what being an attorney is.
Yeah.
Law school teaches you how to write a brief. It teaches you how to argue. But until you have a client in front of you with a debt collections issue and you have mentors and people to steer you in the right direction, you don't know that you have to send a letter of protection to their creditors to keep that from going into collections or any adverse impact on their credit. That's kind of the stuff that I'm learning now as an actual attorney versus how to think and write like an attorney.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on with us today. As we're kind of wrapping up here, is there anything you'd like to leave people with today?
This is my first Meetup 64 event. It's been a great time. I've met a lot of these folks at Up Next Charlie West, the first Tuesdays events, first Tuesdays of every month. It's just really great to see young professionals coming together and collaborate and seeing what they can do to make West Virginia a better place for everybody.
Awesome. Couldn't agree more. And that's why I am the Kanawha Valley Hustler. And I want to remind you, first of all, thank you for listening. Thanks for joining us here today. And as the Kanawha Valley Hustler, I want to remind you to hustle hard, hustle smart, and always hustle with a smile.